supervisor. I've been a senior lecturer to farming, but I still have that attachment with Chambugo. Madam Safina Mutumba, to come and share with you what it is. Remember later I have some other chances to make some more comments. So as for now, candidate.
Thank you very much, my supervisor, for presenting me before the panel. Once again, my name is Safina Mutumba, a teacher by profession who has grown through all the ladders, right from certificate, and here I am to present my PhD thesis to the panelists and dear supervisors plus colleagues. I'm also happy to introduce to you my daughter, who has been able to walk into my feet as I present my PhD thesis. Fahima, stand up for recognition. I also appreciate my colleague at the workplace. We have moved the journey together, Abdul Malik Mwanga. He has also come to be here with me as I'm being roasted. The topic to my study is the influence of school community partnerships on the implementation.
Your colleague Dr. Paul Kaskiri is also in attendance. I wish you the best.
Thank you very much for your presence and being there for me. Let me once again present my topic for the study. This is the influence of school community partnerships on the implementation of integrated early childhood care education services in pre-primary schools in Uganda. Pre-primary schools are one of the service points where we expect integrated ECCE services to happen. That presentation outline of my work, I'm not going to go to the details. The slides will speak for themselves. I'll begin with the introduction. Children have always been taken to be simple, but somehow they are complex in nature, whereby there is no single entity that can manage to them solely. It calls for partnerships to ensure that they are supported holistically. When it comes to integrated early childhood care and education services, we are expected to do holistic service delivery in the upbringing of these children, in spite where they are. This is supported by a legal framework, and that is the National Integrated ECD Policy, which was launched in 2016. It's the one that is expected to guide the implementation of integrated ECCE services at the various service points. Although policies have been introduced to ensure delivery of integrated ECCE services, whereby sectors are expected to work multi-sectorally, sectors have continued to work in silos. which is a disservice to our young children in spite their complicity. Therefore, it requires stakeholders or sectors to work in partnerships to ensure that these children receive the services they deserve. The background to my study, when you look at the global focus, integrated ECD services are provided with ECCE, early childhood care and education, as a component, and that is a mandate of the Ministry of Education, whereby there also the second C caters for the care, which also advocates for the holistic development of the child. The purpose of integration is to nurture a holistic child, that is a holistically developed child. The Uganda approach, when you look at the National Integrated ECD policy, it advocates for the multi-sectoral approach system, whereby there is no single sector that is expected to work alone, although they have continued to deliver services solely or in silos. There are countries that have succeeded in the implementation of integrated ECCE services, and implication that as Uganda, we can learn from those countries. For example, when you look at Denmark, they have integrated education with care models. When you look at have integrated or high parental involvement, and parents being the first center of response of a child, they are very important to work in partnership with the different service points that deliver integrated ECD services to children. Countries like Sweden and Sri Lanka have also succeeded through responsive family and children's needs, responding to children's needs. This one adds a lot of value to the upbringing of their children. Lack of implementation of integrated childhood care and education services leads to duplication. How does this happen? If Ministry of Education works solely, Ministry of Gender works alone, Health works alone, Nutrition works alone, Water works alone, there will be duplication, because that means the government will give out resources to each sector solely. When it comes to resources, there will be wastage of resources. Instead of pulling these resources into one resource envelope, there will be scattered resources, yet it would have happened if they moved to. At the end of the day, there will be failure of children reaching or thriving to their full potential. My conceptual background, this says that school community partnerships as the independent variable. Implementation of integrated early childhood care and education as the dependent variable. The independent variable, I majorly focus at partnerships. These are formal arrangements between two or more individuals or groups of people that agree to manage business, intervention, plans, so that they can, at the end of the day, whereby they share responsibilities to ensure that they achieve a common goal. The conceptualization of school community partnership in my study is as community members positively engage with schools working cooperatively on issues of promoting child stimulation, child protection practices, and healthcare practices. At the end of the day, they will achieve whereby the child will receive holistic services. And when it comes to the implementation of integrated ECCE services, implementation refers to the process of executing active activities or interventions or plans or different models or policies together so that at the end of the day, there is effective management or delivery of services. When it comes to implementation of IECC services, this was conceptualized as coordinated delivery of the various services aimed at bringing up a holistic child. The theoretical background that school can be used to support implementation of integrated ECCE services at the pre-primary school. Here, I used the social capital theory, which was originated from Pierre, James Coleman, and advanced by Robert Putnam in 1995. The social capital, social relationships, and social relationships align so well with school-community partnerships, which are expected to support the implementation of integrated ECCE services. Intends that social relationships are resources that can lead to the development of human capital. The application of implementation CCE services. The theory is about social relationships. And once there are those social relationships, the togetherness, the collaboration, there will be implementation of integrated ECCE services. This helps to understand the influence of school-community partnerships. It emphasizes collaboration, cooperation, trust, mutual understanding, whereby the different entities can work together. When it comes to the contextual background, when you look at the UBOTH Minister of Education Institutions report, the number of pre-primary schools in Uganda are 28,194. Whereas in Chira municipality, time I carried out, the municipality had 150 pre-primary schools. All the different pre-primary schools are the center of response to implement integrated ECCE services. Integrated ECCE services for disjointed child development. For example, when you look at children in urban, concentrate on cognitive development, leaving out the social aspect. Yet when they come home, they will still lock them up into the perimeter walls. Whereas the children in rural areas, much as they miss out on cognitive, partly, at least they have an opportunity of within the community. Maybe that would support them to even learn, although we think they cannot learn. The statement of the problem for my study. The ideal situation is school-community partnerships enhance the implementation of integrated ECCE services. And the problem is, despite the provision of policies and standards that advocate for the implementation of integrated ECCE services, the gap still remains in Chira municipality, which was used as a case study for Uganda. Each sector is delivering on its own. Studies have only focused on cognitive development, leaving out other services, such as protection and health care. And others only look at the part of health care, but not that holistic package. If the problem isn't addressed, the challenges affecting children will persist. And therefore, the purpose of this study, there was need to carry out a study on how such services can be integrated to ensure that children receive a holistic package. The purpose of this study was to examine school community partnerships and the implementation of integrated ECCE services in pre-primary schools in Uganda, a case of Chira municipality. The reason why I used Chira municipality, a question might come. Chira municipality have different categories of context. It has deep rural areas, it has semi-urban, and it also has urban areas, meaning that it can be used as a replicate for other parts of the country. The objective of the study was to examine the influence of school parent engagement on stimulation activities in pre-primary schools. And my second objective was to analyze the contribution of child protection agencies' collaboration on child protection practices in pre-primary schools. My third objective was to assess the relationship between school health service providers' collaboration and healthcare practices in pre-primary schools. My study had both research questions and a hypothesis. And the two research questions included, what is the influence of school parent engagement on stimulation activities in pre-primary schools? And my second question was, what is the contribution of school child protection agencies' collaboration on child protection practices in pre-primary schools? And the hypothesis, I used a null hypothesis. There is no significant relationship between school health service providers' collaboration and healthcare practices in schools at a 0.0 level of significance. This came from my literature, the literature that I reviewed. And this is the conceptual framework that guided my study. It had two variables. One major independent variable, which was school community partnerships, and the dependent variable, which was implementation of integrated ECCE services. Under the independent variable, I had three indicators, and those were school parents' engagement, school child protection agencies' collaboration, and the third one was school health service providers' collaboration. Whereas under the dependent variables, the indicator was stimulation activities in schools, protection practices in schools, and healthcare practices in schools. This was adapted from UNICEF, but the rest of the details are mine. And it had some intervening variables as reflected. That was the NIECD policy, its guidelines and standards, civil society programs, and development partners agenda. The scope for my study, geographical scope. The study focused on pre-primary schools within Chira municipality, Wakiso district, Uganda. And the target group included head teachers, center management committee chairpersons, health workers, and those were the heads of the health centers within Chira municipality, parents and probation officers, because those are the people within the proximity of the pre-primary schools that cause partnerships to happen in order to implement integrated ECCE services. Content scope included under the independent variable, school community partnerships, and the indicators were school parent engagement, collaboration with child protection agencies, and partnerships with health service providers. And under the independent variable, which was implementation of integrated ECCE services, were production of child stimulation activities and materials, parents' agencies contributing on child protection practices, and participation in health days and other activities. And the time scope that my study covered was 2016 to 2023. Why those years? It's because the National Integrated ECD Policy was launched or introduced in 2016, and whereby the implication is that at least within that period, you expect it to work or to be activated. That literature review, I will not go into the details, but it reflects the gaps identified under the conceptual framework, under the methodology, the theoretical part of it, and contextual, that brought up the gap that informed my study. The methodology. When it comes to the methodology, working with different stakeholders who form different partnerships, whereby each of them have their own opinions that can work for them. This drove me to use the pragmatism. It recognizes diversity of perspectives for data collection and analysis rather than adhering to a single approach. Subjectivist ontology, the reality can also be found through personal opinions, feelings, and experiences. In this case, maintaining partnerships can be a subjective issue. When it comes to subjectivist epistemology, truth can also be shaped by individual perceptions, beliefs, and experiences. And my research design, I used an embedded mixed research method with cross-sectional survey design. The population under quantitative, I use out of the 150 population size, using Craige and Morgan, 1970. The sample for quantitative data was 108, and these 108 head teachers were sampled purposively. And I accessed 108 head teachers for the quantitative data. Under qualitative data, the target population were Center Management Committee chairpersons, LC1 chairpersons, health workers, those were the heads of the health centers, and probation officers at the level of police. And the sample size was 150 of them. I worked with 108 Center Management Committee corresponding with the pre-primary schools and head teachers, 36 LOC chairpersons, and that was, the holistic number was 40, but using Morgan and Craige and Morgan, I came up with a total of 36 with whom I work. And since Chira has only 3 health centers, I worked with all of them, and I worked with all the 5 probation officers. I accessed a population of 152 participants, and the overall access population was 260. The data collection methods, I used questionnaire survey method, interview method, and document analysis. And the instruments were corresponding the questionnaire, interview guide, and document analysis guide. Data quality control, I used self-constructed instruments that were developed based on literature review, and the instruments were pre-tested in pre-primary schools of Mukono District Local Government, which was not a target for my study. The quantitative instrument validity of the instrument, content validity test was carried out by 15 respondents, and a content validity index of 0.86 was got. Reliability. The test-retest technique was used to determine the reliability of the study. Qualitative instruments, to ensure validity, I involved a team of 3 experts to ensure that the items are relevant and comprehensive. And under data analysis, the data was analyzed at the same time with descriptive statistics using the mean, standard deviation, minimum, and maximum. And it was also analyzed to test the null hypothesis for objective 3 using the Pearson product moment correlation coefficient to calculate the relationship. And under qualitative data analysis, thematic content analysis method was employed. Ethical consideration, clearance was got at Kyambogo University Directorate for Research and Graduate Training, UCU, REC, and UNCST, Uganda National Council for Science and Technology. I also got permission from Chira Education Department and from the head teachers of the schools with whom I worked, the sample schools. Informed consent forms were signed before I started data collection, and protection of my participants was adhered to. Since part of the study was COVID, I made sure that I put on masks, I wash hands, so that they can be protected, and confidentiality was kept under lock, whereby the information was only used for the purpose of the study. And the demographic characteristics, I worked with 60 male, which was 23.1%, and 200 female, which was 76.9%. Under objective 1, to examine the influence of school parent engagement on stimulation activities in the pre-primary schools. First of all, I looked at the documents that at least have evidence on stimulation. And on evidence stimulation materials, the schools that had it were 37.9%, whereby 62% did not have evidence of stimulation materials. When it came to work plans with the evidence on stimulation activities, only 20.3% had those work plans that had evidence, whereas 79.6% did not have that evidence. Evidence for parent and community participation, only 23.1% had that evidence, whereas 76.8% did not have the evidence. When working with partnerships, there must be agreement. When I analyzed the agreements, only 8.3% had those agreements, and the 91.6% schools did not have them. In some of the schools, these are the partnerships that existed under stimulation partnerships. There were school mobilization partnerships. There were also academic events partnerships, whereby schools worked with the parents, with communities, LOCs, to organize events such as speech days, open days, sports days, and other meetings that lay strategies on improving the performance of children. There was also shared learning partnerships, whereby parents were supporting children to do homework, to develop projects like modeling and others using local materials. And some of the activities under each partnerships, under the school resource mobilization partnerships, was fundraising, grant application, since pre-primary schools are run privately, building relationships with stakeholders in order to solicit for materials, in-kind contributions, because these schools need a lot of materials in order to stimulate children, like old boxes, sandals, flasks to put in the home areas, and revenue generation, because some of them generated some money generating activities in order to support the paying of salaries. Then academic events partnerships. There were MDD days, sports days, workshops, speech days, school meetings, and class days, whereby parents came in to follow up on the performance of their children. When it came to shared learning partnerships, there was support on doing homework, mentorship, whereby parents, some of them came in as resource persons, projects work, whereby children were expected to come up with certain competences and skills, role plays to imitate the different activities within the homes and the school and the community. Then there were also collaborative workshops and feedback sessions, being that the parents at the first center of response, they shared feedback to the schools about their children. Under objective 2, to analyze the contribution of school child protection agencies' collaboration on child protection practices. First of all, the materials that inform this to happen are the policies. So schools that had those policies or who knew about them were 21.2%, whereas 78.7% did not have such policies, neither did they have a lot of details about them. Then school-based policies. Some of the schools came up with school-based policies that supported them to implement child protection practices. And those that had them were 39.8%, whereas 60.1% did not have them. Birth registration certificates. The reason why I looked at this is this informs a lot of planning, mobilization of resources like health and others, protection gadgets. So only 10.1% of the schools had the birth registration certificates for the children. 89.8% did not have them. Under child protection partnerships that existed, there was capacity building partnerships whereby probation officers came in to build the capacity of the staff and the parents. Then there were also security safety partnerships whereby the LOCs were working with the schools to support on the fencing of the schools, to support on the protection of the children and the property in the school. And under child abuse mitigation partnerships, it also happened in schools. Schools were bringing in resource persons to talk about child protection. And under each activity, capacity building partnerships, there was training teachers and parents on safety and protection, policy advocacy, awareness creation, and under security and safety partnerships, there were safe environments, child safety committees, child-friendly spaces. Under abuse mitigation partnerships, they were empowering children to participate in safety and protection strategies, monitoring and support supervision on issues concerning the safety and protection of children, and engaging children into leadership positions that support to mitigate the partnerships. Under objective 3, the scatter plot before you indicates that there was a positive relationship between health service providers' collaboration and healthcare practices. And that red line is the line of good fit. The plots are all near the line. That implies that there was a positive relationship because there was an increase in number. When it comes to the correlation results, relationships between school health service providers' collaboration and healthcare practices, the null hypothesis was rejected. This implies there was a strong positive relationship between the school health service providers' collaboration and the healthcare practices, and the score was 0.6656, which indicates that the relationship happened, was positive. And under healthcare partnerships that existed in the schools, there were healthcare services partnerships whereby children were receiving immunization, vitamin A supplements, and deworming at school level. Then planning for health partnerships. There was instances when the health workers were collaborating with the schools to ensure that they share information. Then under capacity building partnerships, there were discussions or sharing of experiences on what is supposed to happen. Under the healthcare partnerships, under the 3 partnerships that were identified, healthcare services partnership, immunization took place. There were routine screening, health checkups, Child Days Plus, whereby children were receiving vitamin A supplements, deworming, and health monitoring to ensure that children are healthy and safe. And under joint planning health partnerships, school meetings took place. There were communication and collaboration. Under capacity building partnerships, there were health training for parents and teachers, policy advocates, and awareness creation. For school parent engagement on stimulation activities in pre-primary schools, 3 partnerships were used, but only one was found to be strong, and that was the resource mobilization partnerships. All under stimulation activities, all the 3 models worked well. That's why so many activities took place. Resource mobilization partnerships, academic event partnerships, and shared learning partnerships. They all became successful. They were observed to be successful. When it came to objectives 2 on school child protection agencies collaboration, 3 partnerships were observed, but only one worked well. That was capacity building partnerships. The 3 were those ones, but out of the 3, only one worked well. That was abuse mitigation partnerships. And under school health service providers collaboration, there were 3 partnerships observed, but only healthcare services partnerships was successful. In conclusion, the partnerships used to implement the services under stimulation activities included the resource mobilization partnerships, academic events partnerships, and shared learning partnerships. And under child protection, capacity building partnerships, security, safety partnerships, abuse mitigation partnerships were observed. And under health care practices, healthcare service partnerships were observed, planning for health partnerships, and capacity building partnerships. And those are the interventions that were used to implement integrated ECCE services. The first ones were under stimulation activities and healthcare practices, as mentioned in the previous slide. And partnership included under child stimulation, all the 3 were successful. That was academic events partnerships, shared learning partnerships, and resource mobilization. The child protection out so well was on child abuse mitigation. Much as they were there in some of the schools, it did not come out well. And under healthcare services partnerships worked well, others did not come out strongly. And the successful partnerships included capacity building partnerships under child protection, security and safety partnerships, and those that were unsuccessful were planning for health partnerships, capacity building partnerships. It did not come up prominently. Recommendations would be that in stimulation partnerships, all the 3 partnerships mentioned above are recommendable because they were all successful. So I recommend schools to use them in order to promote child stimulation activities. When it comes to child protection, one came out strongly on child abuse mitigation partnerships. Therefore, under child protection, I recommend schools to use the child abuse mitigation partnerships, integrated ECC services. And under healthcare, one partnership worked so well, that was healthcare services partnership. Various services were delivered to the children. I therefore recommend schools to use the healthcare service partnerships in order to implement integrated ECCE services. And the services recommended for integration are reflected below: the fundraisings, all those that I had mentioned under child stimulation activities worked well. And under child protection practices, those services can be used under the partnerships that worked well in order to implement integrated ECCE services. And health, the highlighted activities: immunization, return screening, health checkups, and all the full line can be used to work under child care services partnerships in order to implement integration. The study contribution to the body of knowledge. The study proposes partnership models that can deliver or support the implementation of integrated ECCE services. The study also identifies gaps in partnership models that cannot work well. Therefore, some combinations of integration that do not work well in supporting implementation of integrated ECCE services can be left out and move on with the ones that work well. And thirdly, the study provides evidence on the kind of services that can work together to deliver integrated services. And as a PhD researcher, I have also come up with a model that can support the delivery or implementation integrated ECCs at pre-primary schools. So when you look, and I have called it Mutumba Safina School Community Partnership Model for Implementation of Integrated ECCE Services 2024. So the center of response is the schools. So if schools work in partnership with parents and in partnership with child protection agencies and health service providers partnerships, there will be implementation of integrated ECCE services. At the end of it all, we shall have holistically developed children who will thrive to their full potential and benefit the country and add a lot of value when they become adults. For further research on other potential partnerships that can support implementation of food security and nutrition practices can be carried out. Then research on other potential partnerships that can support implementation of family strengthening and support systems can also be carried out. And the other research is to explore the effectiveness of professional development programs that support children with disability and special learning needs. Those are the publications that I have so far published, although there are others that I published at master's level. Then I also have one that is under review, the one for my third objective on care practices and collaboration with health. Surprisingly, when I was looking for content on child protection within Chira, it's only mine that came up, the second one. So meaning that I have added a lot of value to the body of knowledge within municipality and Uganda as a country. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Yeah, we thank you so much. Hello, yeah. Safina, thank you and congratulations for a wonderful presentation. Yes, in Chambok, as you know, that PhD defense is a game, and we have 3 halves. So this is first half, and Safina is leading 1-0. So yeah, that's good. At least you have scored a goal, and we have appreciated your presentation. You have really talked and presented as a person of authority in the field of early childhood care development and care. Yes, now take time. The fasting period has not yet started, so you can sip, can take some water, bit, and relax because you are going to go for another half. And the lead discussant will be taking you on. Yes, thank you, Friday. So, Hajat, now that you have taken at least a sip of water, that's good. I'm very sure our lead discussant is much more than ready to engage you and to really find out more. And remember that this defense is not about to break you, but to make you. So take every comment, every engagement in good faith, okay? We want to learn and then at the end of the day, improve the quality of our systems. So are you ready for the lead discussant? Okay, so Prof. Mugaga, you are most welcome. Please to engage the candidate.
A very good morning to you, colleagues, the Dean, the Head of Department, the various university officials around, and you dear colleagues. I'm happy and it is a great pleasure to be around to engage with Safina. I don't know that she has ever watched a film called Sarafina. It is a South African film. And I suspect by her name, Mutumba. She's from central Uganda. Is it? Now, central Uganda, they have a proverb. Naga nafa bagasalire subi. That proverb means that even beer which is going to go stale, you have to prepare for it. In that line, I congratulate you, because we don't know what is going to come from Mugaga Anthony. I want to congratulate the supervisors and the head for the milestone so far reached. That's why I said Naganafa. Some people term my role as the devil's advocate, and by her religion, the Saitwan. But we shall try to see how we go. I'm going to use Pastor Sematimba's approach, process by process. So Sarafina, or Safina, not Sarafina. You allow me not to call you Madam or what, I'll just say Safina. It's not a wrestling match like those European wrestling. It's an academic engagement. And I'll start with the very first issue, your title, I was a little bit confused when I opened your book and I discovered two study titles. A single word in a title could mean something different. When you look in your section of acknowledgement, in your section of declaration, there seemed to be another title very different from what we have on the cover page. Why is that so?
Thank you very much, Professor.
You have a right to look at your book.
Yes, it's true. Working with my supervisors, we changed the title, but because of the typing error, I think I did not change some of the pages. But after this defense, I will work together with my supervisor and try to edit all the pages so that they are similar to the cover page title.
Number 2. Simple things. Introduced us to your daughter. In the process of manufacturing the daughter, whom did you thank first? The midwife or the husband, the Hajj?
Now I will relate that question to my study. For example, in this study, the people I have walked the journey with are my supervisors.
Then why did you acknowledge them last?
I will work on that, Professor. I apologize
You
for
see,
that.
in academics, there are things which are given. The husband, the children are by the way. The most important person is the supervisor. Let us continue process by process. And you see, where I studied, when you would see a priest putting on his specs, then you know things are becoming a little bit tricky. Did I thank you for the work done and for venturing into a very novel area? It's like a review of the new education ECD policy. Did I thank you? Let me thank you. I thank you for that. But at the same time, I want to go to your title again. And here I want you to help me understand how has early childhood education in Uganda evolved?
Thank you very much, Professor, for that question. Early childhood care and education started long ago, some time back with the colonialists. And later, it was taken up by the Ugandan communities that picked interest in enrolling their children to schools. And this was more of community partnerships, and religious leaders also came in, whereby these children were educated at either mosques or churches. Then in 1992, that's when the government white paper was introduced. Now the legal issues also came up, And now we have the National Integrated ECD policy. I have tried to skip so that I give a summary at
Thank you
least
very
of
much.
some
Why
policies.
didn't you include that? Because we are talking of a PhD piece. Let us go to another issue. Why have rural areas in Uganda not benefited much from your formal early childhood care education? And others you say have not gone to your work yet.
I would say that, first of all, rural areas have not benefited a lot from this work. First of all, I would say, if I relate this with my research, first of all, they are not aware maybe of the benefits of this. Secondly, they have economical gaps, limited access to such facilities. Then there might be also lack of community engagement and partnerships, because much as they might fail to implement if there are also people that are well off in the area. So if they worked in collaboration and partnerships, then they would also be able to implement or access these
Now back to your
services.
topic. What is the difference between the National Early Childhood Integrated Policy and the old 206 policy?
Thank you very much, Professor, for that significant question. The difference between the two policies is that the first policy was majorly implemented by the Ministry of Education, and it somehow concentrated on education and upbringing of the children, although it had highlighted a number of stakeholders that are supposed to work on the ECD issues. Then the National Integrated ECCE policy came up strongly to advocate for the multi-sectoral approach system to integration of ECD services, whereby sectors are expected to work together.
Process by process. Back to your title. Why did you use the phrase the influence of school community partnerships? Don't you think that preempted your study, that you already knew that there is an influence?
Using the term, thank you, Professor, for that question. Using the term influence, I felt that it would make my title more significant into the area of partnerships in the implementation of integrated ECCE services.
So how significant did you find it? School community partnerships.
School community partnerships, these are collaborative and the school parent engagement partnerships on stimulation activities, child protection agencies partnerships.
So let me ask you another question. What policy guides these? And what is the difference between pre-primary and child care centers?
Thank you very much, Professor, for those questions. Pre-primary schools, this adult care and education policy, the two have pre-primary schools in them. Then when it comes to child care centers, those are organized settings that offer supervision and care services to children below the age of 3, most especially for parents that work or when their parents are not available.
Thank you very much. So what did you exactly study?
My study limited itself to children within pre-primary schools, and those were children of 3 to 6 years of age.
Are you sure? Let us continue. What motivated you to choose Wachiso? Cognizant that Wachiso, unlike other districts in Uganda, as far as preschool, has the highest concentration, the best facilities around. Why did you go for that which has the best and not go to Kidetok, Nakapepit, or Kisoko?
Thank you. To Chira municipality, as I explained in my presentation, is that Chira municipality has the different context. It has areas that seem to be deep in the rural.
Which area?
Like Chimwanyi in Chira division. Even when it comes to Weyogere division,
Chimwanyi is closer to Kasangati, and that's not rural.
It's closer, it's true, Professor. But when you go into deep, like in Chimwanyi there.
And remember Chimwanyi Hill School.
Yes, it might be there, but there are also schools that seem to be remote. And when it comes to Weyogere division, those suburbs towards Namataba in Chirinya also happen to have some bit of rural areas. However, there are also suburbs that seem to be in urban, but with poor facilities. And the Wakiso you talked about has areas like Sisa, deep there, which seem to be remote, much as it's next to Kampala and some other areas.
Did you put that in your book?
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
You are sure?
Location.
If I asked you to show the page, would you? Let us continue. So, Safina.
Yes, Professor.
There is what we call a real problem, an imagined problem. So what did you present? A real problem or imagined?
I presented a real problem.
What is the real problem?
The real problem.
And the reason is, your problem is covered in 5 pages. The write-up of your problem is covered in 5 pages, I think. We could open there. Open the problem statement. Which page? Cognizant that when someone talks a lot or writes a lot, you know there is nothing.
It's on page 41, Professor.
Page 41?
Yes.
Okay, let me open. One, 42, 43, up to page 44. So what is the real problem? Because when I saw almost 5 pages, I imagined that there is no problem. So what is the problem?
The real problem, Professor, is on the implementation of integrated ECC services.
What is the problem with the integration?
Much as policies I've advocated for implementation of integrated services. It's not happening. Sectors have continued to work in silos.
So, a very good policy with poor policy implementation framework. And I suspect, as one was introducing you, that you are from the ministry, you feared to say the truth. That you make very good policies, you in the ministry, and then you throw them in the dust, as usual. So say the truth. For us in academics, we do not sugarcoat and run around. So please refine the problem statement so that we know what the challenge is and the challenge with the integrated policy vis-a-vis the terrain on which it is. Maybe section, process by process, we are moving. Object page 45. I'll single out one. Maybe I will still ask you from these objectives. Why did you, objective number 2, why did you choose analyze and not establish? And what do you mean by analyze? Read the objective, read it for the audience to hear. It is there, okay, it is there. To analyze the contribution of school child protection agencies, collaboration, blah, blah, blah. Why do you choose analyze?
Services. Because the policy has been in place, therefore I expected such partnerships to be within the school. So it's the reason I use